Hey crew, I've got the key to this 25 Aston Martin Vanquish. And this week, we're gonna see what it's like to live with. Starting with the spacing in my driveway, which is 16 feet wide by 19 and a half feet. Good Lord, this car is pretty. I mean, I forget how pretty it is. I go inside, I come back out, and my jaw just hits the floor. Stunning. Distracted. Anyway, it is about 7 inches in from the edge, the Aston, and it's parked next to a new Volkswagen Tiguan that my wife is reviewing. If you want to check out her content, it's at Mobile Mama on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And she's got that one parked, wow, within millimeters of the edge. Incredible parking job, honey. Very proud. And with that spacing, there's plenty of room to walk between the vehicles. Power folding door mirrors on the Aston Martin do help. We got a wagon and a double stroller through for kiddos. Now I've got another crazy thought. Okay, so this car at $515,000 is 17 times the price of this one. Put that another way. I could purchase and put in each one of my neighbor's driveways a Tiguan, or just buy the Vanquish. That is nuts. And I like to think of myself as philanthropic, but that would be a difficult decision to make. The front end of the Vanquish is just before the gutter of my driveway, and at the back, that does leave plenty of room to walk in front of the hedge on the path to my front door. When first getting in with the key fob on me, I can just press on the front of the door handle. That will unlock the doors, and then I can maximize the door opening space because the Vanquish's hinges will stop wherever you need to. So let's go all the way out to there. They also glide the door up at an angle, so if I'm next to a curb, I'm not going to scrape against it. And there is a very wide sill here, so I have to throw the leg deep into the cabin before I can then use that as a place for my butt to rest before sliding in and ducking my head so it doesn't make contact with this low roof line. And then closing the door, barely have to pull it. So easy. Hey cabin crew, thanks for joining for this day in the life in the 25 Vanquish. In this video, I want to see what normal life looks like with the Aston Martin flavor of grand touring. So let's fire it up. Good morning, V12. Let's go hear that idle from outside now. Oh, yes. Yes, indeed. That is an exotic noise. And I hope that's what your neighbors are thinking in a positive light, because it's not quite. So if you're starting your day early or ending it late, that could get you into a bit of trouble, especially if you option on this titanium exhaust. Although it now has settled down quite a bit, maybe not so bad. I did forget to mention, I've got curb ramps set up there to help with the clearance issue of the gutter, and you do need it because the Vanquish is pretty darn low. And before we roll out of here, I want to show you where I would put the items I bring with me every day, like my iPhone 15 Pro, which can go on the wireless charging pad, and that's all that's going to fit inside this console. I mean, it's completely dedicated to that. Maybe the key fob can fit in front of it? Yeah, I think that's what that's for. Okay, so that takes care of that. Inside the door pocket, we've got room for my Ray-Ban Meta sunglass case, and if these were loose, there wouldn't be any felt-lined area for them to go. And then I've got my slimline wallet and a granola bar in here. And then my GoPro accessory case and 32-ounce water bottle fit in the cubbies behind these front seats. So actually the storage space inside this cabin is really good, although you do lose the back seats compared to the DBS Superleggera, but you couldn't fit people back there anyway. Okay, now throwing on my seatbelts and pulling the gear selector down into drive. That is going to automatically release the parking brake. I'm going to roll on forward here, dip it down, make sure we are clear, and then turn the wheel. And with the camera system pulled up to confirm it, we are going to clear my neighbor's basketball hoop and trash can on my way out. On my way out of my neighborhood in the morning. If it's hot, I've got the seat ventilation going. If it's cold, I've got the seat heater going. And pretty much at all times, I would love to have the steering wheel heating going, which according to the options list is equipped to this vehicle, and yet I can't find the control anywhere. It's not here on the steering wheel as far as I can tell. It's not in the infotainment system, not even in the climate menu. It's not on the center stack here. It's not near the seat controls. I'm losing my mind. Then you'd think, oh, well, maybe you just ask the voice assistant. So I'd say, Aston Martin, turn on the steering wheel heating.
The steering wheel heater cannot be turned on by voice.
What is that? And it gets worse because you heard the voice assistant and now I can't turn it off. There's nowhere in the infotainment system under all the different settings that lets you turn it off, and even saying, hang on, turn off voice assistant.
Unfortunately, I can't help you with that.
042. And I do have one more bone to pick with Aston Martin because not you. This big ol' sunroof is beautiful. It brings in lots of light and makes everything better and happier, except for when you don't want it to be as bright and you have no control over that. It is tinted, so it cuts down on the heat a little bit, but there is no way to cover it with a physical cover or change the opaqueness. You can't do that at all. I am going to be taking steeper curbs like this at an angle, just for safety's sake. And okay, I've got one other thing to say. I'm sorry. I wish there was a hydraulic front end lift. It would help in the situation of my driveway if you didn't have those curb ramps, but it would also help, I guess, in situations like this. If you're going slow enough, you could raise the nose and then not worry about having to take things at such crazy angles. Okay, back to positive stuff. I like that there are all these physical buttons here, so I can adjust the fan speed, or the temperature, or the volume, or my drive mode, turning this dial here. I don't have to hunt around in the infotainment screen to do any of those basic functions. This suspension just absorbs all of the roughness of the road to pummel it into submission and provide a silky smooth driving experience. And the 8-speed auto is very subtle in its gear changes, and even the carbon ceramic brakes, they don't squeal at all, and they're easy to feel out the pedal pressure to arrive at that stoplight gently. Then when it's time to go, here in the individual drive mode, which I've set up to be much like the GT mode, aka the most subtle setting, it builds momentum effortlessly. I mean, 824 horsepower and 750 pound-feet of torque, it just goes. But it does so gracefully. And then there is the seat comfort, which is phenomenal. For one, the leather, which is everywhere in this cabin, is incredibly soft. Possibly the softest leather I've ever experienced in a car. The shape of the seats, ergonomic, it holds me snugly in place but doesn't squeeze me too tight. Plenty of adjustments for the seat right here, along with memory settings, so I could have a position for the seat, and then Mobile Mama could have a programming for the mirrors, the steering wheel, the seat, all that. Speaking of the wheel, we've got power adjustments to the tilt and telescope, so I can bring it out for my hands to rest at ease. The only two things I would say that disrupt the zen of daily driving the Vanquish is, one, if you need a little more air, then as you raise the fan speed, you really start to hear it working. Like, that's not nearly the max airspeed. That was just 4, but it's still pretty darn loud. And then there's also a good degree of road noise that does enter the cabin. Again, not the blemishes that you would feel, but the texture that you do hear. Some final considerations for daily driving before I get my cup of decaf coffee. Turn signal sound. Is different. And I like that it's different. It's not as high-pitched as most turn signal noises, which gets irritating if you're sitting at a light for a while. This one down the fan speed, is a deeper thumping noise, which I can leave on and I don't mind it. Now for the turning radius. Pull out a little bit before I fully crank the wheel. You know, it's kind of just okay. It's not awful, but it's gonna require one or two extra adjustments in very tight situations and parking lots and things of that nature. What if someone is driving recklessly on the road, almost damaging your $500,000 Aston Martin? You're gonna use your, no, not you. You're gonna use your horn, and they're gonna hear, oh, it's kind of harsh. But remember, it's always better to be yelled at someone via honking when they have money. At last, it's time for What did I possibly...
11:56 a.m.
Take a time out. It's time for coffee. So I'm gonna stop in here at Roosevelt Coffee. And I do usually park next to people, but $500,000. I'm gonna park over here with one side bordering the hedge. So I'll pull over, then go into reverse. That's going to prompt the high-res camera system. Now one thing that's... carbon ceramics. They did check in. One thing that is a bit unique to a vehicle like this is that it's so low that the camera view isn't terrific for the just rear-facing view. So using the top view does help me get close to that curbing without making contact. And then we've got the parking sensors. Get tight, but don't touch. And let's go get decaf. Now that will require me getting out, so let's see what that looks like. I'm gonna open the door and let the hinge... Interesting. So that hinge that I was praising in my driveway, it only actually will hold the door when you get to a certain distance away. There we go. So I just had to touch the bush a little bit. And now that long door and the wide sill is... that bird poop? Yeah, I'm not leaving this car here. $13,000 paint job. Do not want it covered in bird poop. Now, I know you want to mock me out for getting a decaf coffee, but one, it's actually delicious here. And two, when you drive a car as voluptuous as this one, gosh darn it, you just don't need any other stimulant. I'd be lost all the time. Go to take a drive somewhere and never actually make it inside the car because I'd be consumed by the beauty. And I'm not really a red car guy, but this Supernova Red from Q, the customization outfit of Aston Martin, is just stunning and goes really well with these matte bronze 21-inch wheels. Just a showstopper. Oh yeah, I do have things to do, that's right. I do have a place for my drink. One of two cup holders that hold it perfectly in place and raised up enough that I can easily grab it again and take a sip. Protection deactivated. Interesting. That's something I would never tell my wife. Now let's turn our attention to practicality with a run to Costco to benefit the charity Families Forward. Well, crew, I may have bitten off more than the Vanquish can chew because this is a pretty full car here. And even though the Vanquish itself is a large vehicle, the trunk is of more, well, modest proportions. And why wasn't that lid power operated? Friends, 'tis true that one should only boast in the Lord, because though I was convinced and proud of it, that I was going to get everything inside this trunk, I've fallen short by some toilet paper and a Cheerio box. So I'll put the box of Cheerios behind the driver's seat, and the toilet paper is going to go in the passenger footwell. And if I had a passenger, then, well, I guess they'd be holding my butt wipes. For everything else, I say, it fits. Whee! Now, after returning my cart, like a responsible adult, I can confirm that the Aston Martin Vanquish is, well, either Costco or passenger approved. not both. You know, yesterday, I really didn't require much of this monstrous motor. So today I need to rectify that, starting with a real-world 0 to 60 test. I've got my race box set up here to record. I'm in the Sport Plus drive mode. For launch control, I pin my foot to the brake and the throttle. Race start is active, letting go. Okay, subtle, and no, it's not. Good. And there's 60 in 3.61 seconds. Viva la V12! It's held back so much by just having power go to the rear tires. There's so much motor here. There's so much power. And it only has an access point of 2 tires. That's why it was a little delayed as it slowly fed out the power initially on the 0 to 60. And then when it let loose, it was crazy. So ridiculously crazy fast. And I'm gonna leave traction on for this one, because much as I love to feel a car squirm beneath my right foot, and much as I actually feel the electronic limited slip differential at the back sorting out exactly when and where to apply power as effectively as possible, what I'm experiencing in the Vanquish is weight and plantedness up front. I turn in and the front end just goes immediately. But then we have a live wire at the back, and that is something that I'm going to use the electronic nannies to help me manage. Doesn't mean I can't have a good time though. This is definitely one of the most exciting GT segment cars I've ever driven. I mean, the motor is incredible. The carbon ceramic brakes are matching it with their tenacity of scrubbing speed. And the platform is very willing to change direction. So the last 15 minutes have been really fun. I had to stop the video suddenly because I got a warning on the gauge cluster that the battery was very low, which, if you know anything about batteries, that's bizarre if you've been running a vehicle for a while. So I was like, what is happening? Either way, I'm gonna pull off. So I pulled off and stopped the car, and the vehicle just died completely. It was whoever worked on this vehicle last who didn't fully cinch down the positive battery connection to the terminal. So this piece right here was just up. So we went over some bump and it just got loose. So I had to call the folks at Aston Martin, and they told me so done with that. I had to call the folks at Aston and ask them where the battery is in this vehicle, because I had no idea. I popped the hood, it's not there. And apparently it's just behind this leather covered panel. And so I had to find a piece of rubber with my gear and use that on my thumb to shove that back down there. That doesn't mean it's fully secure, and so I now need to go find a shop with probably a 10mm wrench and actually get that cinched down. But that's the explanation why the whole gauge cluster is lit up like a Christmas tree right now. It's not the car's fault. It's whoever worked on it. Anyway, as I was saying, the steering really is quite good. It's not overly heavy, it's immediate on the turn-in, and it communicates load up on the tires through corners. And as for that V12, it is a force. And with the twin-turbochargers, there's so much torque, even from low down in the rev range. However, even with this titanium exhaust system, it lacks the visceral acoustic quality of a naturally aspirated Lamborghini or Ferrari V12. It's more refined. Some part of this is refined. And as for the transmission, this ZF 8-speed auto, I've been pleased with how it's working on its own in the Sport Plus drive mode, but I have yet to dabble in the manual mode. So let me hit the manual button here, pull on these large carbon fiber paddles. Nice action to those. It's obviously gonna hold on to the gear all the way out to red line, but what happens when I need the next gear? A little hesitation there on the upshift, and on the down, again, not as prompt as some dual clutches in competitors, but it's somewhat inconsistent because then it does fire quickly with the upshifts occasionally, and then the downshifts hesitate, but it doesn't give me the feeling of a desire on behalf of the transmission for manual mode, for intervention. It just sort of wants to do its own thing in auto mode, and I think I'll let it, because it seemed to do just fine. But the real story of this car in a performance context is the astounding power and the fact that on a good road, you can really enjoy yourself. Thing is though, driving like that for too long with the 12-cylinder is going to quickly run through your 21.6 gallon tank. And though the EPA rates this vehicle at 13 mpg in the city, 21 on the highway, and 16 combined, I'd actually really love to tell you what the actual fuel economy has been over the last couple days, but when the battery was disconnected, it completely reset the trip. So I can just say that over the last 33 miles, I've averaged 9.5 miles per gallon. And with current fuel prices of $4.85 for the required 91 octane gas, it's gonna cost me $105, ooh, capless fueling, $105 to fill this tank, but with capless fueling, it's gonna be quicker. Now here on the highway, though this is a much less exciting setting than the canyon carving before, this is actually another environment where a GT car like this one should thrive. I'm gonna listen in for the cabin volume at highway speeds. Now it's interesting because I felt like around town, maybe it was the surface I was on, I heard more tire noise, but here at higher speeds on relatively smooth tarmac, I don't really hear anything from the tires, and the wind noise is almost non-existent. The dual pane glass certainly helps with that. This is a super quiet cabin, and that's the GT promise. You're supposed to cover a lot of ground quickly and at ease. Check. And if you'll be commuting in your $500,000 Vanquish, or you just are going to take a long highway drive and you don't want your foot on the throttle at all times, there is adaptive cruise control where I can set the speed and change the following distance with this swiper icon here, and it's going to maintain the gap to the vehicle in front of me. It also will do a lane keep assist, not a steering assist function, so I can't just take my hands off the wheel. It's going to float, but then it'll pull me back in before I depart my lane. And today I'm back on the highway because I'm gonna go do something, honestly, I doubt a lot of Aston Martin owners would do, which is to take the Vanquish to a cars and coffee event. I just feel like most Aston owners want to fly under the radar, so a car show could be too much for them. And on my way there, I want to use two things. The first is Apple CarPlay Ultra. It's my first exposure to this new CarPlay system, which takes over both the infotainment and the gauge cluster, giving it a different skin and still letting you use the core vehicle functions, but not going out of CarPlay to do so. So I would just go to Vehicle to adjust things like the drive mode if I didn't want to use this dial, or change the audio settings or the lights. And then of course, all your other CarPlay stuff is brought up quick and easy, and it responds faster than pretty much any other CarPlay I've experienced in the past. So let's pull up the next thing I want to show, which is the standard Bowers & Wilkins 15 speaker sound system, and I've got some tunes ready to go. And the physical volume knob to raise up that level. It's about 50% right there. That's enough. Not because I wasn't enjoying myself, but because I have a very clear picture of how excellent this sound system is. 15 speakers, by the way, in a cabin this small is a lot, and it is completely immersive. It blocked out all the outside road noise, again at 50% of the peak output. I didn't need any more, and the balance there was tremendous. It had great bass, I could hear the highs and mids clearly. This is a superb standard, I mean, $500,000 car, but still, standard sound system. And I've made it to South OC Cars and Coffee. Let's go get lined up. This is the biggest ongoing car show, I think, in the world. It's so eclectic. They've got muscle cars, German cars, JDM vehicles, now British vehicles. And if I was here early enough, I probably would have got a spot along the supercar alley, but I am not, so I'll take what I can get. Well, considering the actual car I own is a Challenger Demon 170, I decided to park between a couple of SRTs. And because I'm with my muscle car brethren who also have some of their hoods popped, I felt like it was appropriate to pop the carbon fiber hood of the Vanquish, showing off the V12. Hand-built by Luke Wensley. Thank you, Luke. You've done great work. You think you're cool in the Aston Vanquish, and then you roll up and someone brought the Mustang GTD. Oh yeah, it's Forrest over there. This thing is insane. The suspension peekaboo window right there. How do we get the seat for it? Like that? There it is. Look at that. Okay, he's disassembling to show the radiator. Oh my gosh, dude. This wing is nuts.
And it doesn't move, like if you yank on it.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
It moves the whole car.
Yeah, there's no.
Oh yeah, that console. You think they consider many owners just removing that panel? He's gonna lower the suspension now. Oh. Talk about negative wheel gap.
Dude, and if I turn it off,
But that's not actually the Ford that caught my eye. It's my dream car, of course. Ford GT. In the perfect color combo, the blue with the white stripe. Absolutely incredible. One day, that's the dream. And I'd probably also add the titanium exhaust from Bowden. Gosh darn it. An LMP hypercar? Come on. Does this show really have everything? Another dream car, AC Cobra. Also, in the right spec, a Lotus Esprit? That wasn't on my bingo card for this one.
those little ones that you had a
Such great shape. 550 Maranello, my goodness. Anyway, that's it for the show, and now we're gonna go take some photos of the Vanquish with my friend Hayden. Well, I think we found a pretty good spot for photos, huh, Hayden? Well, crew, at the beginning of this video, I pondered what the flagship Aston Martin experience would bring to daily life. And after quality time spent behind the wheel, I have concluded that $515,000 buys you a refined form of exclusivity. Perhaps a Ferrari 12 Cylindri might part the sea of traffic and get you swarmed at a coffee shop, but the Aston, despite its ravishing beauty, isn't as flashy of a daily driver. It's almost, but not quite, the Costco-approved family hauler. It's nearly, but not exactly, the quickest GT up a hill climb. It's a good attempt at intuitive interior design, though one or two features remain perplexing. Yet there's still a reason it will draw a crowd at your local Cars and Coffee event, and you'll still feel like the coolest chap in commuter traffic. This GT is smooth, it's quiet, it's effortlessly fast, and it's quite possibly the most attractive car on sale. I'd see past the lack of a sunroof cover or a front-end lift system for the privilege of parking this in my driveway. Even if that meant that 17 of my neighbors wouldn't be able to get a free Tiguan for their driveway. Anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed this day in the life, and I will see you again next time